Jay, taking a look at how things went last year with the defensive ends, you had a couple of really big guys in Stewart and Squirtin. This year, it looks like guys are a little slimmer, maybe a little quicker. Is that by design, or is that just body shape?
A little bit by design. You know, you obviously Nick and Shamar are great players. I think when you look at what we did with Cassius in the bowl game, Cassius is kind of like one notch below those guys size-wise, I think. But still, like the ability to drop both of them into coverage, I think it has value. And I really think as we became more of a four-down front, like the ability for those guys to be on the edge and pass rushers was really valuable. Not that Shamar and Nick weren't, but I think a commitment to a little bit more of a true edge player, and was part of the process. And then part of it, frankly, was like who we knew we had to go in the transfer portal and get some guys, and the best players available. What are they? I think that's what you do as a coach is you build your team around the best players available, and that's kind of what happened a little bit too.
We'll go second row on the right side to Travis and then Tony.
Yeah, I know the kind of season ended off last year with Coach Elko talking about how the secondary needed to be better. How has the secondary made strides, and what kind of tweaks, changes have y'all?
Yeah, I took it as everybody needed to be better, coaches included. Certainly the linebackers weren't, they were a part of that also, So I think, I think when we got here, we were patching it together a little bit with a lot of moving parts, and they kind of settled in. And I think when injuries happened, we just didn't have some of the depth we needed. And I feel really good about our depth right now. I feel really good about Will Lee and Des Ricks and Javon Thomas, the second year in the program. I think Jordan Peterson does a great job with those guys. Obviously, getting Tyreek back will be valuable. Jordan Shaw's been unbelievable from Washington. So I just feel like the corner, the nickel position is really good. And then I think it's safety. This defense, the safeties are involved. And so I think Marcus, Bryce, Dalton, and then I think Miles Davis is really coming along as a young player. I just think that there's more depth there. There's more guys that can play. And so I think the less moving parts, the less, well, this guy's down, we got to shuffle the deck, I think is going to help us tremendously.
And what has Lyle brought to the coaching staff?
So I think Lyle's really knowledgeable about Mike's system and how Mike wants to do things. I think that's been a big help. It's one more, really respected voice in that room. How do you guys see defending this route? How do you think the best way to defend this is? What's a concept we should install? I think it's been a big help.
We'll go second row on the left side to Tony and then Alex.
You may have already tipped your hand with the Jordan Shaw comment, but you guys have added a lot of ready-made talent here. Is there anybody that's made a good first impression or has stood out here early?
Yeah, I think Jordan's been tremendous. I think the edge players. I think T.J. Searcy, who I had a relationship with from Florida, has been really good. I think Deion Hayes has been tremendous. And I think it goes back to relationships a little bit, right? Marty Sims, the strength coach at Colorado. Deion goes in the portal. Everybody in the country is trying to get him. We are again. I think he's going to be a really, really important piece of our defense. Sam and Pimba's been great. So I think the edge players have been really, really good. And then I think Jordan's been awesome. I think Julio's been awesome. So I think we feel really good about the guys we got. And then I think the freshman class we feel tremendous about. I think the 3D tackles are all going to be really good players. Obviously, Marco Jones is a pretty unique player, special player. I think Noah's been great. So I think we feel really good about where we are with the front seven pieces we've added, and I think some of the veterans in the DB room are really talented.
We'll stay on that second row to Alex and then Olin.
Yeah, kind of going off of Travis's question, was there anything schematically you feel like you guys have been working on changing since last season, and just how candid were the conversations in the weeks after the bowl game about the need to improve defensively?
Yeah, I think they're extremely candid on both parts, and I think we're definitely have made, I think, some pretty serious schematic adjustments. Some things that maybe were a little outdated, some things that we think are going to help us a little bit. This conference, like the NFL, it changes all the time. And so I think I feel really good about where we are right now schematically. I feel really good about the answers we have in the pass game. And I think Mike does too. And so, no one was immune to the discussions. And I think we worked at it, and I think we've come up with a really good plan moving forward.
We'll go front row on the right side to Olin and then Carter.
I'm not going to really give the schematics away, though, if that's cool. Yeah, thanks.
Coach, if I could ask a couple of things. First of all, last year, a lot of times we heard about, when teams were having long runs, misfits and things like that. I'm not saying that was always on the linebackers, but what strides have y'all been able to make to tighten that up?
Sure. I think anytime you have an explosive run, you can usually break it down to a mistake, right, or a fundamental error. So I think the first thing we started doing was like addressing the fundamental errors, right? There were some times we missed tackles. Our leverage was bad. I think there were some schematic issues, to be honest with you, too. But certainly when you play linebacker, it's your job to make things right. You know, you're the second level of the defense for a reason. And so I think when some of the runs that you probably have in mind were ones we could have played it better. And so like Torian and Scooby and Damian, they know that. You know, and so we've worked really hard at it. And I think another year in the system, another year of playing college football, they're going to be a lot better at it. And I think we have simplified some things in the run structure that will help us. And I think all that moving forward is going to pay off for us.
What makes Marco special? You're talking about
Yeah, he's just a really talented kid. He's really smart. He was the reason I was a little late, man. Recruiting battles never stop, right? So that was a recruiting battle. You know, Sean Spencer and Tony did a great job recruiting that kid, and we think the sky's the limit with that kid.
We'll stay on that front row to Carter and then to Mark.
Jay, Elko said that he's planning to be kind of more involved with the defense. Just how would you kind of describe that dynamic between you, Elko, and now with Hemphill in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike and I, he wants it done a certain way, and I think Mike's one of the best defensive coaches there is, and so I think he's just been a little bit more like involved, and I think a little bit more like, why are we doing it this way, why are we doing it that way, and I don't think it's been a wholesale change. I think it's been more, let's clean this up, let's change this. I don't like this, I do like this. So he's been more involved, and it's been really good. And I think it's given him some peace of mind too, that he's 100%. Not that he was never 100%, but he's well aware of what we're doing and has a little bit more say in what we're doing. And I think it's been great.
Was there a common denominator with the tackling issues last year, and how do you guys go about fixing that?
I mean, I think tackling's a really difficult task and one that you work on all the time. And so I think sometimes we miss the tackles for a lot of fundamental reasons that we work on, But I also think sometimes you're tackling really good players. And I think most of our, a strong percentage of our missed tackles were situations where we got the ball into space and created too much space for a really good player. So I think it's more of the schematic and the fundamental answers to give us a better chance to make an efficient tackle. But certainly, fundamentally, we're looking at how we're teaching tackling. We're looking at how we're drilling tackling. And I think we've made some improvements there.
We'll go front row on the right side to Mark and then back to TV row.
Jay, you already mentioned the freshman at defensive tackle. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you've seen from them and maybe the young quarters you've got as
Sure.
well?
I think the 3D tackles, Landon Rink's been awesome. He's been exactly what we thought he was. A coach's kid, tough, just a really, really good football player. I remember watching I guess it was an Under Armour game and watching him just dominate and being like, man, I'm glad we got that guy. He's been really good. I think Chase Sims is going to be a dynamite player. A kid that I think we identified really early and probably helped us get him in the long run because he ended up being recruited really heavily. I think he's really smart. He's going to be tremendous. I think DJ Sanders is really, really talented. All three of those guys, man, those were recruiting battles, man. That wasn't like a layup, And so I think to get those three guys, I think they're all going to be really good players, man. And then I think in the secondary, Adonis Curry and Kobe Sellers, he came to bowl practice. I think Kobe Sellers, we knew he was really talented. We knew he was fast. He had all the verified track times. But I think his football knowledge has really impressed me. You see why they played him at quarterback some in high school. I think he's got a really bright future. I think Adonis Curry is really talented. Jamar's been out with a shoulder injury, but we know who he is. And then I think Dejon Petaway, when he's been in there, has done a nice job. So I feel really good about those corners. And then Tom at safety, is behind some really veteran players, is learning, and you certainly see the movement skills, the physical talent there. So I think all five of those kids we hit on feel really good about.
We'll go back behind the lights on the left side to Tyler.
Jay, how is this spring, I guess, different from last spring? And after a year of what you guys have learned, is the approach? Does it feel any different than a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like there's a difference. Like you study Spanish in school, and then they drop you in the middle of Madrid. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know what you're doing right now. We've lived in Madrid for a year, right? So I think the ability of our older kids to fix mistakes, to help younger kids. I think everything is just way more advanced, and I think our older players' understanding of how the standard we want to play with, how we're practicing. I think all that's way better, and I think it's allowed us to to do more schematically and to add more to it. And yeah, I mean, I think the first year is always the hardest year, and I think especially nowadays with the way the rosters are compiled. So, you know, I think we feel really good about where we're headed. You know, obviously we lost a couple of really talented kids, but I think we've replaced them with some talented kids, and I think it's going in the right direction at a really high rate.
All right, it looks like that's all we have. Thank you, Coach.
If I could say one thing real quick, today's April 2nd. It's Autism Awareness Day. I know a lot of you guys know my son has autism, and I just think, like, you know, it's one out of 37 kids nowadays have autism, and you know the people here in College Station where my son goes to school have been unbelievable, and I just think like that's a tribute to this community, and I just think, like, you know, it's a big deal to me and my family, and I just want to say thanks to all the people in this area that have been great to my son, and this being Autism Awareness Day, just bring everybody's awareness of that. So thanks for that.